Good morning. It's Tuesday morning. I recorded yesterday with my mom for this week's podcast, which will go out tomorrow. And so some of this will come in the wrong order, but I accomplished a couple things and I wanted to show you some updates. I look awful drinking out of a bottle. Anyway, but it's Tucson and we have to stay hydrated. It's the Yarn Closet from Tucson, Arizona, and my name is Laura. I am Yarn Closet AZ on Instagram and Ravelry. Podcast once a week with my mom, Knitting Kitty, and we post on Wednesdays. This Wednesday will be Snarky City. We have the Yarn Closet website, which will be growing this year, I hope. There's a lot of links on there to different things like Growly Bear Soap Company here in Arizona with all natural products. The electric eel spinning wheel with no treadle. I have a nano coming in August and I just ordered the 5.2 eel wheel because the one that I ordered off of Etsy is like tied up in shipping. It's ridiculous. And I now have fiber that I purchased, so I want to spin. And I'm having a hard time doing bigger projects because it's just warm. And you may notice the brick, the big brick. I live in a house from the late 60s in Arizona. It's called slump block. That brick is the brick you see when you drive by and you see that my house is brick. It's the other side is outside, this side is inside. We have no sheetrock insulated walls to the outside in our house. We even have slump block walls in the middle of our house because back in the day, the way these houses were built, lower ceilings, just a slight grade to the ceiling, not a lot of windows, moisture coolers, they call them swamp coolers instead of air conditioners. And you'd have your house open and you'd get a lot of airflow through it. But because of skin issues, allergy issues that have grown over the years, that is harder for people to do here. And so we have an air conditioner. I do have a humidifier you might be able to hear in the background that also helps circulate some air and get some moisture into things for us. Because moisture air is easier to breathe, and my husband does have a lung condition. Twice this week I've checked on him because he slept in and he's been in bed a lot lately, and so I've had to check and see, is he still there? And he'll tell you he's fine. He'll tell you he's absolutely fine. But, being the spouse, it's tough. And you know that there's additional risk anytime someone has that kind of an issue. And his mom just died from a similar but different lung condition. She just dropped dead in her living room. So, but she was 20 years older. So anyway, it's been an interesting week. Like I said, Snarky City with me and Kitty this week. She's having headaches. She's out today having an eye shot, which is why we recorded yesterday. She gets eye shots monthly, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, because her macular can be kept at bay with these shots, but those are traumatic. Some people don't respond well to the medication, whatever. I'm glad that my eyes at this point couldn't be helped by something like that because I would not want to have to make that choice. But that's why sometimes we record at different times. And so we talked a lot about socks in the last couple of episodes. So I managed to do a little work last night and wanted to show you, even though it's before the first part. Okay, so yesterday I showed you, and I posted on Instagram, a sock tube that had ribbing and a heel at both ends that I had not yet separated, and then I separated it yesterday, and I showed you pictures on Instagram. So now I'm working the toe. Because that for me is a really easy way to do 2 at a time. Normally I would do both ribbings and then both heels, but I use certain needles. Like I like the 9 inches for my ribbing and then magic loop for my heels. And one of my zings with fixed circular zings in the 2.25, which is what I usually use, it's catching. So I might have to take that out of rotation. I actually might just cut the wire and use it for a short needle when I do 3 needle bind offs and stuff like that. So normally I would have these matched up, and then I would cut it in the middle. And the way that I cut it in the middle is I literally weave in that magic loop needle and this magic loop needle. There's 1 row in the middle, you snip and you pluck it apart, and now you have your 2 socks. Everything's woven in except my toes. So now I'm gonna whip out my toes, which, by the way, if you do the math on a 72 stitch tube times the 4 rows that I do in solid toe color, then I do 11 rows decrease, and then a bind off row, that ends up being, what, about 15 rows at 72 is about 1,100. It's 1,100 stitches just to put a toe or a heel on this puppy. At the rate I'm going in the last couple weeks with all the toes and heels and cuffs I've been doing, I probably could have made myself a sweater. But I wanted to show you that because one thing I did try last night, I noticed do you notice it here? Do you see that first row? How you can kind of see the blip? Because I started right away in 2x2 ribbing. And I thought, not good, not good. And maybe you know this, which is great, but you know, a lot of the podcasts I listen to, they're fun, but they're not that instructional, and I didn't know. So then this one, I did the pickup row, stitched a whole row in purple, then stitched a whole row in purple in stockinette, and then I started my 2x2 ribbing. No little blip row. It looks much neater. You know, and my life is not always the neatest when it comes to my knitting. I don't know why we got this little blippity blip over here, but I'll try to sew that in. I am simply doing 3 needle bind offs on my heels and my toes, or this one was a crocheted bind off, and it definitely leaves more of a ridge, so I don't know that I'll want to do that again for a heel. But I am trying to just clean out a bunch of small tubes, and so I use this little crochet hook. Because Kitchener takes me longer, and honestly, the way that these ride on me, it doesn't, and I don't wear shoes with these socks because I'm home almost all the time, and I have my socks on and usually no shoes. So that's not a big deal for me. So I wanted to show you that little tidbit tip on socks. And then here is that pair that I did sock surgery on. I got them started, and once again, I did a couple rows of stockinette before I started the ribbing. I'm going to simply do the ribbing, and then I'm going to bind off. Then I'm going to go to the upper part and make a sock. Then I'm going to go to the other sock that's split. So I end up getting 2 pairs out of one long pair of socks that I just wasn't wearing because I wasn't enjoying that extra long cuff. Goodness gracious, I think that was it. That was all I wanted to show you, is that little tidbit trick on the ribbing. Always do a row or 2 of the new color before you start the ribbing. And I've just never heard someone else say that. But have fun, make some socks because they're not hot to work on over the summer. It's a great time for it. And send some support along to Kitty, who's having a shot today. Look with your heart first.